Arizona's Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone is sharply critical of the Republican Senate-run audit of the 2020 presidential election. Beyond inspecting the 2.1 million ballots, the Senate audit now wants to inspect digital machinery and is demanding certain routers or digital copies of them, as well as passwords to voting machines that county officials say they do not have. Penzone warns that providing the routers could compromise confidential and classified law enforcement data and equipment, in a statement calling it, quote, mind-numbingly reckless and irresponsible. Joining me now is Elizabeth Howard, the senior counsel for the Democracy Program at the New York University Brennan Center for Justice. She recently visited the Arizona audit site, serving as a court-ordered outside inspector. Elizabeth, it's great to have you with us. So from your perspective, from what you've seen, what is the point of this audit, you think?
Well, the point doesn't have to do with election integrity or election security based on the procedures that I witnessed. The procedures in use at the Coliseum are drastically different from the professional and effective procedures in use across the country by election officials. So, for instance, when the counters are supposed to count ballots, the ballot is placed on a spinning turntable. So the ballot counters are tasked with watching the ballot as it whizzes by, checking to see the marks on it for 2 different races, and then marking their tally sheet accurately, all before the next ballot comes whizzing by them on the table. The procedures also allow for the multiple instances where the counter's tally sheets don't match. So in a normal post-election procedure where you're reviewing individual ballots, there would be a pair of bipartisan officials that each agreed on how to count the individual ballots. That's not what we're seeing at the Coliseum. That's another concern, along with the fact that they continue to change the procedures that are in use.
So in response to a letter outlining concerns, some of which you just documented there about the audit from the Justice Department, Senate President Karen Fann said that plans to directly contact voters about their ballots were being indefinitely deferred. How much is process and execution of this audit a break from the norm? You were just touching upon that a little bit, but how much does this deviate from what is standard operating procedure?
Deviates drastically. From the very beginning of this process, where Senate basically forced local trusted election officials to hand over 2.1 million ballots, voting machines, and other election material that they had been responsible for serving as a custodian for. And in Maricopa County, that means that this material is kept in a locked vault, which is kept under 24-hour-a-day surveillance. From the moment that they transferred possession of these materials to the Senate, these ballots have been subjected to loss, damage, and other concerns. When they first moved into the Coliseum, they did not properly secure the facility. There were local reporters on the ground that accessed the Coliseum for multiple days without anyone asking them who they were, if they had appropriate credentials, and at least one local Arizona reporter was able to film in the Coliseum in what looks like just feet away from unguarded pallets of ballots.
I know that the Washington Post is reporting that former President Trump has become obsessed with this recount, saying, quote, he talks about the recount constantly, asking for updates several times a day, and has become especially fixated on the UV lights being used to inspect the ballots. Do you think the Senate is do you think the Senate is dressing up partisan activity in the guise of legitimate inspections here?
I certainly think that take over our elections and usurp authority from our trusted local election officials. And our big concern is that this is just a prime example of what we've been seeing across the country, where state legislatures on a partisan basis are peeling back the authority that has been traditionally vested in our local election officials and pulling it to the state, where they can make decisions about our elections and their outcomes on a partisan basis.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.